In this video, I'll be showing you how to use the COUNTIF and COUNTIFS functions in Excel. In this spreadsheet, I have a basic budget of just months and different descriptions of expenses and different incomes and whatnot. But in this expenses report, I have a couple of entries where I think COUNTIF would be really helpful. So we want to know how many number of entries of all of these expenses do we have. This might be really helpful to know, oh, how many times did I get gas over the course of a certain number of months? Or how many times did I eat out? We're going to begin by typing in COUNTIF in this row that has eating out in it. So when we type in count, we'll see COUNTIF come up. We're going to double click COUNTIF. It's going to tell us exactly what we need to know here. We have the range and the criteria. So first we want to type in the range. And this is where it's going to look for that criteria to count. So in this case, the range where I want it to look is all of my entries under this category column. So I'm going to select all of column D. Now you might not need to select an entire column, but you might need to select a certain number of rows or a certain number of values or whatnot. But in my case, I need all of column D. So that's my range. And I'm going to hit comma, and then I have to put in my criteria. Now the criteria is what it's going to count, what it's going to look for. So in this case, I want to look for the number of times I've eaten out under all of these entries. So I'm just going to click cell J14 because that's equal to eating out. And then I can just hit close parenthesis and then hit enter. And then it's going to come up with a number. And it says I've eaten out 4 times, which if you look at column D, there is 4 times where I've eaten out. So this is correct. You can also do this by entering text. So now if we hit type in eating out instead of selecting cell J14, we hit enter, but now it says 0. So what's going on here? Well, the thing is, if you're looking for a specific value that's not in a cell, you have got to put it in quotation marks. So if we put eating out in quotation marks and now hit enter, then it's going to return the 4 that we were looking for. A couple other helpful things that you can do is there's a lot you can do with this. So you can say, oh, well, I want to look for, instead of in column D, we're going to look for all of the expenses above $100. So we'll select column F for our range. We'll hit the comma. And then for our criteria, we're going to put it in quotations again. So we're going to need the quotations, otherwise it's going to give us an error. We want to say all of these values greater than 100, and then end quotations and hit enter. So then that gives us 6. So there's 6 different entries here above $100. So another cool thing you can do is if we type in COUNTIF again, you can specify, we'll specify our range here as just our expenses up until row 18, hit comma. We can specify our criteria as not equal to a number. So to type in not equal to, you hit basically a double brackets here, less than greater than sign, and then we'll say not equal to 100, and we'll see how many values we get. And then put it in quotations again, because you're going to need it in quotations, otherwise it'll give you an error. And then hit enter. And then from the range that I selected, there are 17 entries not equal to 100. Now if you want it to just look for blank cells, you can just type in the quotation marks and nothing in between the quotation marks. So then just hit enter. And then from that criteria, from F1 to F18, it's saying that we have 4 blank cells, which is correct. Now what are we going to do if we want to do COUNTIFs? For COUNTIFs, it's basically the exact same thing, except we can enter multiple criteria for it to count. So let's type in COUNTIFs, and we can click on it, and it's going to tell us what it needs from us. So we're looking for criteria range 1. In this case, it'll be just that same column D that I want. So we still want to look at how many times we've eaten out. That criteria, again, I'm just going to click on eating out. So that's our range 1. And then now we need criteria 2. So in this example, I'm going to select the month of January as my criteria 2. So we're looking at up at the top here in the yellow, this month that I'm viewing is January within my expenses and whatnot. So for my criteria range 2, my range is going to be column A, this month here. So I'm going to select that as my criteria range 2, hit comma, and then click cell K1 because that's January, or I could just type in January, but I want it to be able to update with whatever I put in this cell. So that's why I'm clicking on that cell rather than just typing it in, because otherwise I'd have to go back into this formula and update that. So then we can hit close parenthesis and hit enter. And so now it's saying, well, I've only eaten out one time in the month of January, which does line up, because I've only eaten out once here in January. All right, let's do one that's a little bit more complicated here. Let's type in =COUNTIFS, if I can spell it right. COUNTIFS, we'll click on it. We've got our criteria range 1. Again, this is just going to be, we'll just look at the month of January to start. So we'll scroll over, click column A, hit comma. We'll click on K1, because that's saying that we want to look at January. Hit comma. We'll scroll back over here. Now we need a criteria range 2. And this time I want to look at all of the number of expenses that I have in the month of January that's above $100 but below $1,000. So to do that, I'm going to click on the expenses column, column F, as our next criteria range. Click comma, and then for criteria 2, we'll hit quotations because it's got to be in quotations. We'll say it's greater than 100, end quotations, hit comma again. So now we're on criteria 3. We're still looking at expenses. We're still looking at our numbers of expenses next because we want to look at what's less than 1,000 next. So we're clicking on column F again. And then we'll hit comma. And this time, again in quotations, less than 1,000. End quotations, and close that parenthesis. Then click enter. There we go. We have 2 entries within the month of January that are greater than 100 and less than 1,000. So if we're checking this out, we're just looking at our expenses here. And yes, that does make sense because we've got an expense here that's $200 and an expense here that's $150. So that is correct. So those are just some quick examples of how and when to use COUNTIF and COUNTIFS. I hope you found this video very helpful. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Excel spreadsheets, more quick tutorials, and more really helpful templates coming in the future. I hope you all have a wonderful day.